The role that work may have on mental health may surprise you. Work can be something that provides meaning, enjoyment, it helps with finances. Work can be a means where people deal with life struggles. Yet the other times people say they are too sick or ill that they are not able to work. Or they attribute work as a cause of a lot of stress in their life and they don't want to continue with their job or their situation. Experienced psychiatrists have informed me that work, especially in males, provides a sense of purpose and meaning, and is almost protective for males to not get clinical depression. And oftentimes what we see is when males lose their job or get laid off, that can be a trigger that leads them to get clinically depressed. I looked at this a little more thoroughly, looking at some of the research that we have available. Meaningful work in men, and also a sense of reward for taking care of the household in women, provided people with better mental health. However, in women, even though it helped their mental health, it actually caused them to be affected physically, like maybe weight gain or some other issues physically, which kind of really surprised me, because as a psychiatrist, I'm pretty much taught that if the medical problems get worse, the mental health gets worse. If the mental health gets better, usually the physical problems get better. But this study seemed to show that that wasn't necessarily the case in women. So then I looked about shift work. Shift work meaning people that work outside of the normal hours of 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. For example, people that work overnight shifts, they can get depression, affect sleep, anxiety. They could be more likely to use substances. They may get impairments in their thinking. Their quality of life may not be as good. And they can even get thoughts of suicide. And there's also evidence that an inconsistent work pattern or an unpredictable work pattern can also be associated with poor mental health. Physiologically, the body has a natural circadian rhythm in which it's typically more active and energetic during the day and more prone to go to sleep when it's dark or around nighttime. And there are hormones in the body that sort of regulate this response. During the day, there's more cortisol that's excreted, and cortisol can be something that also is known as like the stress hormone, can help be a little bit motivating, energizing for people to get stuff done. On the other hand, at night, there's a little bit more melatonin that's secreted, and when melatonin is secreted, it binds to the receptors, giving someone this perception that it's time for bed, or they get a little bit tired and go to sleep. So there's a study done in nurses who work in the hospital setting, like in the night shift, and if you've ever been in a hospital or familiar with a hospital, there's always people in there, there's work going 24/7, and they found that these nurses, they took a urine sample and there was less melatonin products in the urine sample, suggesting that their body was producing less melatonin so that they could stay up during the night and complete their job. So it just shows how shift work can change the physiology and the hormones of the body that can lead people to have mental health problems or psychiatric issues as a result. How about working from home? We know that during COVID and the pandemic, the working from home has been quite mainstream. And people that deteriorated working at home, either physically or mentally, was typically due to the environment that they were working in. They weren't getting as much physical exercise, their food intake changed, they weren't communicating as much with coworkers, there are children at home, which proved to be distractions during the work hours, which I wouldn't normally have. Also, the workstation setup and satisfaction with the work environment all played a role in their physical and mental well-being. Also, it was found that the organizational support that the work had for their employees, or their colleagues, or people outside of their work, if they were helping people get through their family conflicts, that also played a role in people's mental and physical well-being. Then I looked at the role of education, and there was a study that showed adolescents or young people who are not in school or not in work tend to more likely have substance use problems or mental health problems. In other words, those people that were in school or in work or some sort of training were less likely to have mental health or substance use problems, But I know that can kind of raise the question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it the mental health problems that led people to stop going to school or work? Or was it them stop going to school or work that led to mental health problems? And so it's not really clear from that study. But they do find that in other areas of research that getting people into employment did help with their quality of life. Education can also be an avenue where people are educated about some of the consequences of drug use, of violence, of risky sexual behaviors, of other things that may affect their life, and so it can help educate and prevent them from doing those things down the road. One of the high schools nearby where I live changed their school start time to later in the day to provide their students more sleep. And the research shows that students who have more sleep typically are more likely to attend classes on time. They're less likely to be late, less likely to fall asleep in class. They get better grades, and they have fewer motor vehicle accidents. All this for just pushing the school start time a little bit later so the adolescents and the students get a little bit more sleep. A study I came across showed that too much education was more likely to lead to depressive symptoms in people who were overeducated. As a doctor, I was a bit saddened to hear about this because as a doctor, we do a lot of education, 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of residency, and then we got to continue with the education throughout our lives to keep up to date with stuff. There's a lot, and it reminds me of King Solomon in the book of Proverbs, who said, "For in much wisdom is much grief, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow." So to find the meaning of life or deal with some of life's challenges can bring about a lot of spiritual and mental pain and be quite frustrating at times. And the wisdom of our human nature can also bring about this grief, but the contemplations are that if you have divine wisdom, that will bring peace, gentleness, kindness, joy, those good fruits, and that can apply to everyone's life, and that will not bring the sorrow. Also, work seems like a necessary part of living. St. Paul states this in his second epistle to the Thessalonians, "If anyone does not work, neither shall he eat." God put human beings in the Garden of Eden for mankind to help to take care of it. So having a faith in God is not a reason to be lazy or neglectful. In fact, it can be a motivation to work more diligently, to know that you're serving God and that God sees all the good that one does and he will reward accordingly. So there are some exceptions for people working, like people who are physically or mentally incapable of doing it. But sometimes this can be a fine line because it can be unclear if someone genuinely cannot work or if they are faking symptoms or exaggerating their symptoms so that they do not have to work. So the question about whether or not work is helpful or harmful for mental health can vary depending on the person's situation, their work environment, their home life, the amount of stress involved, the physiology of their body, if they're doing shift work or work day, the hours of their, or the predictability of their work schedule. So this video did not even talk about cases like workplace harassment or bullying, which would open up a whole nother can of worms, which would need its own investigation. But be sure to comment on the video, let me know your thoughts, like it or not like it. Maybe we can explore more videos similar to this one if it was worthwhile watching.